Hi, I'm Rita. In my diploma project, I investigate the potential of temporary use, and I choose this topic because of my interest and obsession with dismountable architecture. Rising rental prices in our contemporary cities make it harder and harder to find rentable place at an affordable price. Controversially, the reason why space is becoming increasingly scarce is not due to the lack of space, but the inaccessibility to it. In Brussels, around 50 to 30,000 of the existing housing units are simply empty because of property speculation or the owner's inability to obtain a mortgage to refurbish it. Vacancy accelerates the decay of the building and increases the feeling of insecurity within its neighborhood. Furthermore, there is a higher chance of vandalism and crime, and eventually it makes our city centers deserted. A temporarily unused property is also a problem for its owner because of the management costs and the vacancy tax. On the other hand, empty properties are urban resources that offer temporary platforms for alternative usage, triggering entrepreneurship, creativity, allow experimentation, and is also beneficial for the owner. To figure out the future use and explore the possibilities that underutilized areas offer, city planners facilitate access to these spaces for the citizens living in the neighborhood to empower and enable everyone to participate in the construction of the city. To help citizens managing the negotiation process with the owner, non-profit organizations started to emerge. Such an organization is, for instance, Communa, based in Brussels. Their main goal is to heal the urban scars by temporarily occupying and reconditioning vacant places. This is Lesser, a recently occupied building run by Communa. It contains 4 living units to accommodate their vulnerable people, co-working spaces for artists and non-profit social organizations, and the public venue with the community kitchen and the bar based on solidarity economy. This is the most important place, which gives home to neighborhood activities, workshops, solidarity and second-hand markets, and cultural activities. The recovery of the empty places happens as follows. Upon choosing the next possible building that seems appropriate for such an intervention, Communa contacts the owner of the property and convinces them about the benefits of temporary occupation and to let citizens use the property while it remains empty. They then sign an occupancy contract and Communa co-creates the plans together with the future users. Afterwards, they refurbish the building to meet the minimal demands with the help of volunteers and the committed citizens of the neighborhood, and occupy and maintain the building for the agreed period, which could be 2 to 5 years. As an organization mainly consisting of young lawyers and social workers, my role and contribution to their operation was a central question for me from the beginning. Throughout our discussions, it became clear that the biggest challenge they face is connected to the notion of constant relocation, because temporariness is not yet fully incorporated into their construction mode. They hardly ever dismantle and reuse the structures that they made at previous sites. Furthermore, they are also very open to extend their field of operation to vacant plots. Vacancy is an issue affecting all cities. However, I examined an extreme case in the Northern District in Brussels that have been under heavy development in the last 20 years. In the chosen territory, the building sites were unused for 14 years on average, from which 4 sites are still unoccupied till this day. During this period, many had some temporary functions, such as parking, but in other cases the plots were simply enclosed from the city, remaining as missed opportunities. To narrow down my search, I looked at building sites that are owned by the Community Land Trust Brussels, a new player in the city's affordable housing market, who have already collaborated with Communa and would certainly be open for such a socially oriented intervention. CLT Brussels has many sites where the land acquisition had happened already, but the construction of the homes have not yet started due to its longer-lasting nature. Therefore, these plots can remain empty for many years sometimes even for a decade, which is a long enough period for a temporary settlement. The 3 sites they currently own have very similar geometric characteristics: long narrow plots perpendicular to the street with 1 or 2 fairly high firewalls on their longer sides. Since the design project on the first site is the one that is still in its initial phase, I decided to continue working with this one. The empty plots could be used to house people and families in need of accommodation, or to host community events and provide job opportunities. The framework of the project starts to take shape as we combine the timeline of Communa and CLT Brussels. While CLT is working on the feasibility study, Communa gathers possible future tenants, and together they customize the plans. Then, tenants will acquire construction skills on night classes. The construction starts right after the land acquisition. We can see that the assembling of the temporary building should not take longer than 1 to 3 months, so even in the worst case scenario, there would be a 2-year-long period of tenancy, but preferably 5 years. These residents could be families from the waiting list of CLT Brussels, or disadvantaged students, young adults, couples, single mothers, or homeless people who already live in shelter and need a bit of help to take the next step. The occupation comes to an end just before the construction of the permanent building would start. The emergency living units don't just wish to offer accommodation, because that alone would not solve the issue connected to precariousness and exclusion. An integrated empowering process is needed, where the accommodation is supplemented by social support, professional integration, and skill building, happening with a very open and supportive community, making sure that till the end of the occupation period, residents will be able to move out to a permanent place and integrate back fully in the society. Therefore, residents are fully involved in the design and construction of their temporary homes, which would give them confidence and a sense of ownership, and also new skills. To meet these conditions, I collected building components that are durable and have dismountable connections so they could be reused, can be constructed and dismantled within a really short period of time, that is low-tech, and the assembly method has an educative community generator aspect. And lastly, it enables a rich variety of floor plans. Based on these criteria, I assembled a reference building catalog and evaluated their building components based on how fast it is to assemble them and how low their material cost is. I made different categories for structure, partition, infill, and foundation. Ideal components are situated along this axis. Then I chose 3 of the fastest and cheapest components and calculated their weight, price, and time to construct them. After comparing the 3 different possible volumes, the third option, the timber box frame, seemed to be the best solution, so I continued working out the assembly method step by step. The construction started with installing the foundations and the piping, and would be followed by laying the floorboards, lifting the timber frame boxes with a mobile crane, adding the structural partitions, and placing the structural boxes and the cladding with a thermal insulation between its layers. The ceiling structure is carried by the firewall and the box frames on the other side. Finally, the skylights and the roof can be placed. After completion, the residents can move in and personalize the garden and the timber surfaces. The grid is more visible from the top view, showing the rhythm of the structure, where one unit consists of 2 grid elements. The free floor plan is only divided by curtains and shelves. There are different floor plan variations for single people or couples, for students, and for bigger families who could occupy 2 units. Shelves can also serve as a built-in furniture in case residents don't own certain furnitures. This could be of help, for instance, for students or for homeless people. The communal space is situated on the street side with a big kitchen, giving home to public events, shared meals, and a washing room. Important element is the fence that serves as a communication surface about commune's upcoming events and about future CLT homes. The garden around the home serves as a semi-public space, but is also a productive garden where special absorbent plants are grown to clean the possible contaminations from the soil. Its character changes according to its urban context, while the homes are traveling to different sites. It would be a playground on the site in Leuven, which is in the proximity of schools, or an outdoor gym on the site in Anderlecht, which is right next to the soccer field. Because of this constant relocation and the disassembling of the elements, there need to be a quality check on a regular basis to correct possible material damages. If the lifespan of the building component comes to an end, elements can be easily changed since the measurements of the building components are synchronized to materials available at building material resellers. And while most of the maintenance work has a purely functional aspect, such as replacing missing or broken screws, some changes have a significant impact on the overall aesthetic. The agency of maintenance offers the opportunity to the residents to add their own personal touch while they are taking care of their environment. My project investigates the potential of vacancy, redefining the core of help giving throughout self-building, while saving resources with dismountable building techniques. Thank you for your attention.